Alyssa Thomas pressed her fist into Caitlin Clark's neck while Clark was on the floor. Not a foul, not a flagrant, nothing. And that wasn't even the worst part of the night. By the time Clark limped off the court in the third quarter, Thomas had also driven a knee into Clark's groin, the exact spot she'd been nursing last season, and stepped directly over her like she was nothing. Every single one of those plays went uncalled. So, when Stephanie White got to that microphone after the game, she wasn't just frustrated, she went nuclear. She was done pretending this was normal. What happened on June 24th didn't start on June 24th.
I mean, Caitlin to the ground, and ooh, that's a hand to the neck, and then Alyssa Thomas steps over her. See, that's the kind of stuff that can incite some future trouble.
24, Clark's rookie year, when Thomas plowed straight through her entire body as she came off a screen. No attempt to play the ball, no attempt to slow down, just a full body check that sent Clark stumbling. The refs watched it happen and put the whistle away. No foul, no review. Thomas just kept moving like she hadn't done anything because as far as the officials were concerned, she hadn't.
Look here at the heavy contact. A little bit of a shoulder there. Not a little bit, a lot of a shoulder there for Alyssa Thomas.
Yeah, they're not going to look at this. They might.
It's gotten the fans here fired up.
Play mattered more than people realized at the time because it told Thomas exactly what she could get away with. When you hit someone and nobody calls it, you don't stop hitting people. You just keep going, maybe a little harder next time, because the league already showed you there's no cost attached to it. And Thomas didn't just test that limit with Clark. She ran through Nafisa Collier so hard during the 2025 playoffs that Collier was still dealing with that injury nearly a year later. When Angel Reese confronted Thomas at some point, Thomas chokeslammed her. This isn't a player who occasionally gets physical and pushes the line a little. This is a...
The tip was clean by Thomas.
Look at that.
And they banged knees after the Nafisa Collier.
She has 21 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and Fee is being helped back to the locker room. Let's go over to Angel Gray.
Yeah, I'm watching her walk through the tunnel right now.
Player who hurts people and keeps playing because the calls don't come. So, going into June 24, 2026, the history between Thomas and Clark wasn't some abstract background detail. It was the actual context for everything that followed. Thomas had already proven she'd go after Clark hard. The officials had already proven they wouldn't stop her. And Phoenix came into this game with a specific mindset about how they wanted to play Indiana. DeWanna Bonner, who used to play for the Fever and clearly still has feelings about it, framed Phoenix's approach as revenge. Straight up. The Mercury lost to the Fever 2 nights earlier on June 22nd, and Bonner wanted people to know this win was payback.
Hopper able to win the jump. Thomas comes up with it, but is going to get whistled for an offensive foul. And she's looking at Nate Tibbetts. He doesn't even look to the back of the bench. He immediately signaled to take a look at.
Oh,
yeah, that's
saw
not
the elbow extend from behind, and
that's not going to get overturned, I don't think.
June 22nd game is worth talking about for a second because it set the temperature for the rematch. 6 technical fouls in that game. 1 ejection. NaLyssa Smith got tossed after she shoved Thomas following a skirmish that involved Clark and Bonner. So, the Fever already knew Phoenix was going to come back aggressive, and Phoenix already knew the Fever weren't going to just absorb it. The refs knew all of this, too, which is what makes their performance on June 24th so hard to stomach. A body check is a choice. A knee to someone's groin is a choice. Pressing your fist into someone's neck while they're on the floor is a choice. None of those things happen by accident. When players make those choices and nothing gets called, the only lesson they take from it is that they can keep making those same choices. And the WNBA after 2024 never came out publicly to say anything about Thomas's physicality toward Clark.
This is one of the wildest games I have ever watched in my life. I watched Caitlin Clark get punched in the throat. I watched Caitlin Clark get kneed in the groin, get kneed in the ribs. I watched Caitlin Clark hit the ground repeatedly. For months now, I've been talking about how Stephanie White's system will lead to a Caitlin Clark.
No acknowledgement that what happened in that game was outside the rules. Just silence, which in practice works the same as approval if Phoenix didn't show up on June 24th planning to play clean basketball and let the game sort itself out. They came in with a plan to get physical with Clark from the opening possession because that plan had already worked before and the league had never given them a reason to change it. Thomas knew the refs weren't going to protect Clark. Bonner knew it. The whole Mercury roster knew it because the evidence was sitting right there in 2024, unaddressed and unpunished. Clark walked into that building and into a situation the league itself had spent 2 years allowing to develop. Clark came out in that first quarter like she had a personal problem with the entire Phoenix Mercury roster. 13 of her 19 total points dropped in that opening quarter alone, shooting 5 for 9 from the field, 3 for 4 from 3, and a perfect 6 for 6 from the free throw line. She finished with 19 points and 8 assists in under 20 minutes of actual court time. So, just let
Clark, sidestep three, fading, hits!
All she needs is a little bit of room to see the ball.
13 lead here for Phoenix. It's been a back and forth opening quarter so far. Clark getting right to the hoop. Clark, early in the bag, step back three, connects again!
That number sit for a second, because that's an absurd stat line for anybody, let alone someone who spent multiple possessions getting physically targeted by a player who clearly came into this game with bad intentions, because that's when Thomas started doing what Thomas does. The first incident happened in the second quarter during a loose ball scramble, and Thomas drove her knee directly into Clark's groin. Not a glancing blow, not incidental contact from two players going for the same ball, a knee into the exact area Clark had been nursing as a prior injury.
Breaking to the basket, and here's what hustle plays are all about. You got 3 Phoenix players around Caitlin Clark, and yeah, it's physical.
To the ground, and ooh, that's a hand to the
play. It's not subtle. The officials were right there and didn't call a thing. And then came the fist. Clark ended up on the floor, and Thomas came down on top of the situation and pressed a closed fist directly into Clark's neck. Not a brush, not an awkward hand placement from trying to get up. A closed fist pressed into her neck while Clark was on the ground. That's not a basketball play. That's not competitive physicality. That's just hurting someone on purpose. And the refs were standing close enough to see it clearly and still didn't blow the whistle. White later told the officials about it at halftime, and they told her they simply didn't see the contact, which is either a flat-out lie or a level of inattention that disqualifies you from officiating a professional basketball game. Thomas then stepped directly over Clark while she was still down on the floor. Stepping over a player like that gets called as a technical in plenty of other games against plenty of other players, but Clark got nothing. No call, no review, not even a conversation between the officials about what they just watched.
Fam, get AT out of the league, bro. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it, fam. AT is a dirty player. All the way through and through, dog. She is a dirty player. She can't beat you, so she beat you, literally. This is nonsense, man. This is nonsense. Yo, Caitlin Clark was busting they butt out there. She literally had 19 points, 8 assists. She was ready to sleepwalk into a double-double, 20 plus points, 10 assists. She was sleepwalking into it. Sleepwalking into it, and here come AT with this nonsense, man.
Thomas just walked away clean again. Separate from the Thomas incidents entirely, there was a reckless closeout on a Clark three-point attempt where the defender flew in so carelessly and out of control that Clark landed on her foot coming down, which very nearly rolled her ankle right there on the court. That play also went uncalled. No flagrant review, no pause in the game, nothing. So,
give landing space when the player comes out.
You've got a knee to a prior injury, a fist to the neck, a deliberate step over, and a reckless closeout that almost snapped her ankle. and the officials called 0 of those plays. Clark walked off the floor at halftime with a heat wrap around her back, which tells you the contact wasn't minor. When you start seeing training staff applying heat wraps at halftime, that's not routine maintenance. That's a player managing real pain while trying to figure out if she can keep going. She couldn't. Clark came back out and then exited in the third quarter with that back injury. And she didn't return for the rest of the game. And it's worth being direct about what caused that.
Not going to return. This was in the third quarter. She was on the bench in that timeout, and you can see her face. She's grimacing, and she immediately decides that she's going to go back to the locker room. And in the third quarter, Paris gave us the update.
Her body absorbed repeated shots in an area that was already vulnerable, none of which got flagged, and eventually it gave out. Phoenix didn't outplay Caitlin Clark. Thomas just kept hitting her until she couldn't stay on the court. And the officials handed Thomas the permission to do exactly that on every single one of those plays. Indiana didn't fold when Clark walked off that court. Aaliyah Boston was already deep into one of her best nights of the season, finishing with 23 points and 9 rebounds. And she kept attacking the paint with that quiet, relentless energy she brings every single game without needing anyone to notice. Kelsey Mitchell had completely taken over on offense, dropping 30 points and 6 assists in 38 minutes. And on any other night, that performance would have been the entire conversation. Alyssa Smith put up 13 points and made sure Phoenix wasn't just shoving Indiana around in the paint without somebody pushing back. The Fever were down their best player and still right there in a close game late in the fourth quarter, which tells you everything about how hard this group competed. And then the officials started making calls that were very hard to explain. With 2 minutes and
Hines Allen. Muscle on muscle, and Hines Allen wins the battle, and a foul.
Be physical, and in the post-up game is one place right here. 2 hard dribbles, gets the leverage, playing undersized.
And 12 seconds left and Indiana trailing by only 2 points. Aaliyah Boston got hit with a flagrant one for allegedly elbowing Kalia Copper in the face. You see, the problem is that Copper fouled Boston first, and the officials upgraded that call into a flagrant anyway, which handed Phoenix 2 free throws and the ball. One analyst called it a potential 4 to 6 point swing at the exact moment.
Copper. Kalia Copper come for that double team with Alyssa Thomas, and you see Aaliyah Boston, that left elbow goes into her chin. Looked like she had her, definitely had her chin was shaking. Oof.
That is not a great feeling. And you see,
Indiana needed a stop to stay alive. And that's not an exaggeration when you watch how the sequence played out. Copper converted the free throws, and then Aya Wilson knocked down 2 more foul shots shortly after. And just like that, the deficit grew from 2 points into something much harder to climb back from. Mitchell fouled out on an offensive foul call that she openly said felt soft. Her exact words after the game were that the final foul was really soft compared to the couple that had happened earlier in the game. And she also said the team needed to be smarter about keeping the refs out of the game. Mitchell finishing with 30 points before fouling out wasn't a minor roster adjustment. Losing her at that moment removed Indiana's entire offensive engine at the worst possible time. And the Fever didn't have a clean way to replace that production with the clock winding down. Raven Johnson then picked up a foul call in the final minute that sent Phoenix to the line again, and that sequence closed whatever door Indiana still had open. The Fever's last real possession ended with Johnson fumbling a pass from Lexi Hull. Turnover. Game over. So, count those up: Boston's flagrant, Mitchell's phantom offensive foul, Johnson's foul in the final minute.
Leadership right there. Kelsey Mitchell knows she's been in these types of situations. Of course, Aaliyah Boston and Raven Johnson going to get called on this foul against Copper.
3 calls, 3 possessions, all going Phoenix's way in the fourth quarter of a game Indiana had every right to win. White told reporters after the game that the Mercury shot 24 free throws in the second half alone, and Indiana got called for 11 fouls in the fourth quarter compared to only 2 for Phoenix. 2. The same officials who watched Thomas press a fist into Clark's neck and decided that wasn't worth a whistle somehow found 11 fouls to call on Indiana in one quarter when the game was on the line. Boston and Mitchell were both playing with 5 fouls late, which meant every possession they had to be careful, pull back, second-guess themselves, and that's not a coincidence when you look at how those fouls got distributed. The Fever went into that fourth quarter with a real chance, and Boston still had 23, Mitchell still had 30, and Smith was still competing hard in the paint. Indiana gave
Caitlin to the ground, and that's a hand to the neck, and then Alyssa Thomas steps over her. See, that's the kind of stuff that can incite some future trouble.
Phoenix everything they had in that building, and the officials spent the fourth quarter making sure it wasn't enough. Stephanie White didn't walk up to that microphone looking for a fight. She'd spent the whole season filing complaints through the proper channels, raising concerns about officiating consistency, doing everything the right way, and the league hadn't moved. So, by the time she sat down after watching Clark take a fist to the throat, a knee to her prior injury, and a step over while she was on the ground, all uncalled, White was completely done being careful about how she said things. She called the officiating egregious and utterly disrespectful, not as a general vent about a tough loss, but as a direct description of what she personally watched happen in that building.
Game, have you seen that? Did that have any impact on her health in this one?
I just saw it. I'm not sure if it had any impact on the health or her health or not. But it was egregious. The fact that it was a no call. I heard about it at halftime. I brought it to the attention of the officials at halftime, yet we still had 11 fouls in the fourth quarter to their 2. They still shot 24 free throws in the second half.
White told reporters that she'd brought the Thomas neck incident to the officials' attention at halftime, explained exactly what happened, pointed it out, and they told her they simply didn't see it. White's response to that was absolutely unacceptable, and she meant it. You told them at halftime.
Number one, you gotta call it. It's absolutely egregious and utterly disrespectful. And then number 2, you're coming in here aware of what happened 2 nights ago, and that shit still happens? Absolutely unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable.
They had the whole second half to think about it, and they still did nothing. White also went after the way the league reviewed the reckless closeout on Clark's three-point attempt. The one where Clark landed on the defender's foot and nearly rolled her ankle. The officials reviewed that play and, instead of looking at whether the defender violated Clark's landing space, they spent the review trying to figure out if Clark had committed a hostile act by stepping on the defender's foot.
And the reckless closeout that they actually reviewed, and the foot still comes down on top of the defender's foot that wasn't upgraded? Absolutely disrespectful. We have a generational talent and a WNBA superstar who had 2 cheap shots right there that weren't called. And I just say again, absolutely unacceptable.
Compared it to getting a do-over on a test and still screwing it up, which is exactly right because a review is supposed to catch what the live call missed, not invent a new reason to penalize the player who was already at risk of getting hurt. What made White's comments land differently than her previous post-game frustrations was how specific she got. She named the fist in the throat directly, called it crazy and dangerous, and tied it to Clark's broader treatment across the league. She is not called the same way everybody else is called. That's not a coach being emotional after a loss. That's a coach who has watched this happen repeatedly and finally ran out of patience for pretending it's a coincidence. Clark's response came on Instagram after the game. 3 words, this is enough. No explanation, no long post, just that. Clark isn't someone who complains publicly. So when she posts something like that after leaving a game injured, it carries real weight. She absorbed the knee, the fist, the step over, and a near ankle roll on that closeout. And she still finished with 19 points and 8 assists before her body gave out in the third quarter. This is enough isn't frustration. That's someone telling you they've reached an actual limit. Phoenix's response made the whole thing worse. Bonner framed the win as a revenge game, talked about how beating the Fever just builds confidence, and focused entirely on Mercury momentum without addressing a single one of the physical incidents involving Clark. Thomas said nothing publicly about any of it. When the player who drove a knee into someone's prior injury and pressed a fist into their neck doesn't feel any pressure to even acknowledge what happened, that tells you everything about what accountability looks like from that side of the court. As of the post-game period, the WNBA League office hadn't announced any formal review or discipline for Thomas. No statement, no suspension, nothing. White told the league exactly what happened at halftime, and they ignored it. Clark posted 3 words on Instagram because she'd run out of other options, and the league's answer to all of it was silence. Clark has a home game against the Sparks on June 27, then a full week off before the Aces on July 5, so her back gets some time to settle, and that's genuinely good news for Indiana. But the league still hasn't announced anything about Thomas. No review, no suspension, nothing. The officials told White at halftime they didn't see the fist in Clark's throat, and apparently that answer was enough for everybody in the league office, too. Boston dropped 23. Mitchell dropped 30. White stood at that microphone and refused to soften a single word. And the WNBA's response to all of it was complete silence.